Ever find yourself stuck using like a collaborative tool and it feels like it's moving in slow motion? You're both typing, but the updates are coming in so slowly?
Yeah.
Well, that, my friend, is the problem that Laravel Reverb solves. It takes those web apps from 0 to 60 in a flash, bringing you those real-time features the Laravel way.
Exactly.
And to help guide us through this exciting new world, I've got our expert here, ready to dive in.
Absolutely. Let's break down how Laravel Reverb can bring that really instant, seamless responsiveness to your fingertips.
Okay, perfect. Now, I know we say real time a lot these days, but what's the actual technology that makes this all possible?
So it all starts with something called WebSockets. Imagine constantly having to refresh a web page to see if there are any new messages.
Right, inefficient.
Yeah. WebSockets are like a direct line between your browser and the server, so those updates can flow instantly both ways.
Okay, no more frantic refreshing. But we're not here to talk about just any WebSockets. We're talking about the Laravel way of doing things. So how does this all work within the Laravel ecosystem?
Well, that's where Laravel's broadcasting system comes into play. You can think of it kind of like an air traffic controller for real-time data in your application. So whenever something important happens, like a new comment's posted, or in our example earlier, a change to a document you're collaborating on, Laravel can broadcast this event.
And waiting on the other side, eager to hear about these events, are our web browsers, right? Ready to update in real time. Smooth. Today's deep dive is about one specific part of this world, Laravel Reverb. What makes this so special?
So Reverb is Laravel's very own WebSocket server, purpose-built for speed and scalability. It's not just some third-party add-on, it's deeply integrated into the Laravel world, and it plays really nicely with tools you might already be using like Forge and Pulse.
Okay, I like the sound of this already. Seamless integration is always a win in my book. But let's get down to the brass tacks. Why choose Reverb over other options?
Sure.
Give me the sales pitch.
Okay, first and foremost, speed. Reverb can handle something like 10 times the connections of a traditional setup, which means that your app is going to stay responsive even with a huge surge of users.
Wow.
Yeah, we're talking real-time updates, like lightning speed.
10 times. That's huge.
Yeah.
Especially for applications where every millisecond counts, like a live option site or a fast-paced multiplayer game.
Exactly. And because it's designed specifically for Laravel, you get that signature, elegant developer experience. It's all about getting you up and running really quickly so you can focus on building amazing features, not wrestling with configuration files.
Music to my ears. But what happens when my app, goes viral and I've got more users than a cat video on the internet? Can Reverb handle that kind of pressure?
Yeah, so that's where Reverb scalability really shines. It uses Redis for horizontal scaling, meaning that you can easily distribute the workload across multiple servers as your user base grows. So it's like having a whole fleet of servers ready to handle those real-time updates without breaking a sweat.
Okay, you sold me on the concept. Reverb sounds incredibly powerful and very Laravel in its approach. But I'm itching to see how it all works in practice. What's involved in actually getting Reverb up and running?
Well, one of the things that makes Laravel so great is its focus on developer experience.
Right.
Setting up Reverb is actually surprisingly straightforward. You can get started with a single artisan command, install.broadcasting.
Wait, seriously, one command and I'm ready to roll with real-time features.
That's the Laravel way.
Huh.
And this one command, it sets up your broadcasting configuration, pulls in Reverb, and can even help you install Laravel Echo on the front end for easy integration.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like having a personal assistant for your real-time application setup.
That's what I call developer-friendly. But what about like the nitty-gritty configuration details, things like application credentials and security settings, making sure only the right users can access certain information?
Yeah, so Reverb keeps it clean and simple. Most of the configuration is handled through environment variables. You know those handy key value pair you store in your .env file? This keeps sensitive information out of your code base, which is always a plus for security.
Smart. So we've got Reverb handling the real-time communication,
Yeah.
but we all know that in a production environment, things can get a little crowded.
Right.
How does Reverb handle a sudden influx of requests?
It's like rush hour on the information superhighway.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Managing traffic is crucial, especially when you have tons of simultaneous connections. So in a production setting, you would typically put a reverse proxy, like Nginx, in front of your Reverb server.
So it's like having a traffic director, making sure everything flows smoothly and preventing any bottlenecks.
Precisely. The reverse proxy acts as that gatekeeper, routing traffic, optimizing requests, and ensuring everything runs without a hitch, even during those peak hours.
So we've got Reverb managing our real-time data superhighway and a reverse proxy directing traffic like a pro.
Mm.
But what about when our app, goes supernova? We're dealing with like a user base larger than the population of Earth?
Mm.
Can Reverb scale to handle that kind of volume?
That's where, Reverb's horizontal scaling capabilities come into play.
Hmm.
And remember how we were talking about it leverages the power of Redis to handle this.
Right. It's like having a team of synchronized swimmers all working together seamlessly to handle the influx of information.
Well said. Yeah, so when you enable horizontal scaling, which is as simple as, changing an environment variable, Reverb uses Redis to share information and manage connections across multiple servers.
Okay.
So as your user base grows, your infrastructure can grow right alongside it, making sure that you can handle those real-time updates without breaking a sweat.
This is all incredibly impressive, but let's pause for a moment and bring it back to our listeners. Right?
Sure.
Why should they care about all of this?
Yeah.
What kind of real-world magic can they build with these real-time capabilities?
Yeah, that's the most exciting part. With Laravel Reverb, the possibilities are really only limited by, your imagination. Imagine building the next generation of interactive, engaging web applications. Think like collaborative code editors, where developers can actually see each other's changes in real time, or live auction sites with instant bid updates, or even multiplayer games where every action, feels instantaneous and immersive.
I love how you put it. The possibilities are limited only by imagination. It's like
Yeah,
Reverb hands developers this toolbox full of high-tech gadgets and says, go build something amazing.
exactly.
But I have to ask, all of this sounds incredibly powerful, but isn't real-time communication notoriously complex to get right?
It can be, especially as applications, grow more complex. But that's another area where Laravel's thoughtful design shines. Remember how we talked about broadcasting events earlier?
Yes, it's how Laravel announces changes within an application.
Right. With Laravel's broadcasting system, you don't actually have to manage those WebSocket connections directly. Instead, you focus on defining meaningful events in your Laravel code, new message posted, or in our examples earlier, change to a document or order status, right?
So instead of getting bogged down in the low-level details of WebSockets, I can think about the events that are relevant to my application.
Exactly.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. You trigger these events in your code just like you normally would, and Laravel handles broadcasting them to the appropriate channels, making sure the right users are notified in real time. So it's like this nice layer of abstraction that keeps your code, clean, organized, and really focused on your application's logic.
Okay, that's starting to make a lot of sense. So I define my events. Laravel broadcasts them using Reverb, and then my front end, powered by Laravel Echo, is listening for these events and updating the user interface in real time. Is that a fair summary?
You got it. It's like this beautifully choreographed dance between your back end, the WebSocket server, and your front end, with Laravel acting as the choreographer, to make sure that everyone stays in sync.
That's reassuring to know. But let's talk about security for a moment, right? Real-time applications, they often involve sensitive data. How does Reverb make sure that only authorized users can, listen to certain events or access specific information?
That's a great question. Yeah, security is paramount,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about real-time applications. The good news is that Reverb integrates really seamlessly with Laravel's, existing authentication and authorization features.
So I can use the same robust security features that I rely on in other parts of my Laravel application to secure my real-time features built with Reverb.
Absolutely. Remember, we briefly touched on private channels?
Yeah.
So when a user tries to connect to a private channel, Laravel automatically steps in and runs an authorization check to make sure they actually have the necessary permissions.
Right.
This means that you can leverage Laravel's granular permission system to, control who sees what in real time, just like you would with any other part of your application.
That's a huge relief. It's great to know I can rely on Laravel's, robust security features when building real-time features with Reverb.
Yeah.
But what about when I need to go beyond the basics, like when I need to customize how authorization works or handle more complex scenarios? Can you shed some light on those situations?
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes you need, that extra level of customization, and that's where channel classes come in.
Okay.
These classes provide a really structured way to define the authorization logic for your private and presence channels.
So instead of cramming all the authorization logic into like a single file, I can create dedicated classes for each channel, making my code cleaner, more organized, easier to maintain.
Exact.
I'm a big fan of organization.
Yeah, channel classes give you that like dedicated space to manage even the most complex authorization rules. So they act as those gatekeepers for your channels,
Mhm.
ensuring that only users with, the proper credentials can listen in.
This is all incredibly valuable, but I'm curious about those presence channels we keep mentioning. What makes them different, and what kind of superpowers do they unlock? They sound almost magical.
Presence channels, they kind of build upon the foundation of private channels, but with this added layer of awareness. So
Okay.
not only can you control who subscribes, but they actually give you real-time insight into who's currently subscribed to a channel.
So if I was building like a chat application, I could use presence channels to display a list of online users or, show who's currently viewing a particular document.
You got it. Presence channels are perfect for those scenarios where, knowing who's present is really essential. It's about bringing that sense of like real-time awareness to your applications.
That's incredibly powerful. And to think this is all like baked into Laravel and seamlessly integrated with Reverb,
Yeah.
it's a testament to, Laravel's dedication to providing this comprehensive ecosystem for building modern dynamic applications.
Mhm.
But we've talked a lot about the theory and the how. Can we get our hands dirty with a practical example?
Sure.
I think seeing some code would really help solidify these concepts for our listeners.
Absolutely. Let's bring this down to earth and look at a simplified version of a real-time feature you might encounter. So remember our collaborative document editing example from earlier.
Yes.
Let's explore how we'd implement that using Laravel, Reverb, and broadcasting.
Okay, I'm ready to fire up my code editor. Where do we start?
First, we need to define an event that will be broadcasted whenever someone makes a change to the document. Let's call this event document updated.
So every keystroke, every formatting change would trigger this document updated event.
Precisely. And to make sure that this event gets broadcasted through our WebSocket connection, we need to mark it with a special Laravel interface called should broadcast. Think of this interface as like a beacon that tells Laravel, hey, this event should be shared with anyone who's listening.
Okay.
Right.
So in our document updated event class, we'd implement the should broadcast interface. And that's it. Laravel takes care of the rest.
Almost. So this interface requires our event to define a broadcast end method, which tells Laravel where to broadcast the event. So since we're dealing with like a collaborative document, we'll want to use a private channel that's tied to the document's unique ID.
No.
This way, only users with access to that document will actually receive the updates.
So it's like a private conversation between everyone collaborating on that specific document.
Yeah.
I love how organized and secure this approach is.
Exactly. Now, remember how we talked about those channel authorization callbacks?
Yes.
They act as those gatekeepers, making sure only authorized users can actually listen to private channels.
Right. We need to make sure that only users who are supposed to be collaborating on the document can receive those real-time updates. No eavesdropping allowed.
Exactly. We'll define a callback for our document.documentNoy channel in our application's rootchannels.php file. This callback will verify that the currently logged in user is actually authorized to access the document. We can accomplish this by checking if, they have permission to view or edit the document based on our application's authorization logic.
Okay, so we're double checking that you're allowed to be in the room before you can hear what's being said. That makes perfect sense. What happens on the front end?
This is where Laravel Echo comes in.
Right.
Remember that handy JavaScript library we mentioned earlier?
Right. It's our ears on the front end, listening for those real-time updates.
Exactly. We'll use Laravel Echo to subscribe to the document updated event on our document's private channel. And once we receive an event, we can use a bit of JavaScript magic to update the document content in the user's browser seamlessly. No page refresh needed.
So as users are typing, deleting, or formatting the document, these changes are reflected in real time for everyone else who's collaborating.
Exactly. It's like magic, but it's the power of Laravel Reverb and broadcasting in action.
This is so cool. I can already imagine the possibilities. But before we get too carried away, I think it's time to address the elephant in the room, or in our case, the bug in the code, right?
Right.
When you're dealing with real-time communication, things can get really tricky to debug.
Yeah.
What advice would you give developers who are new to this world?
That's a great point to bring up. Debugging real-time applications can feel a bit like, trying to catch lightning in a bottle
Yeah.
sometimes.
Uh,
Luckily, Reverb provides some helpful tools to make this process a little bit easier.
Okay, good. I was getting a little worried there.
Yeah, so one of the simplest but most effective techniques is enabling debug mode when you actually run Reverb.
Okay.
This gives you this live stream of information about the messages flowing through the server, almost like having X-ray vision into your application's real-time communication.
So it's like having a live feed from the engine room showing you exactly what's happening under the hood.
Yeah.
That sounds incredibly valuable.
It is. You can see which events are being broadcasted, which channels are being subscribed to. If any errors pop up, it's a gold mine of information when you're trying to track down a tricky bug. And also, don't forget about your browser's developer tools.
Oh, right.
Most modern browsers have excellent tools for inspecting network traffic, including WebSocket connections.
Right.
You can see the messages being sent and received, inspect the headers. You can even simulate different network conditions to test your application's, resilience.
Oh, right. I often forget how powerful those browser developer tools can be. They're like having a secret weapon for debugging.
Absolutely. And never underestimate the power of good old-fashioned logging.
Right.
Laravel makes it really easy to log events, which can be incredibly helpful when you're trying to understand the sequence of events that led to a bug.
Right.
By strategically logging events related to your real-time functionality, you can gain those, valuable insights into what's happening behind the scenes.
Oh, this has been incredibly insightful. What stands out to you as the most compelling aspect of Laravel Reverb? What is you most excited about its potential?
For me, it's the combination of power and elegance. Reverb brings that magic of real-time applications to the Laravel ecosystem in a way that feels, intuitive, familiar, and really enjoyable to use.
Right.
The fact that it's so easy to set up, integrates seamlessly with Laravel's existing features, and scales effortlessly makes it a joy to work with.
I couldn't agree more. It's clear that Reverb is a game changer for Laravel developers who want to build the next generation of interactive and encouraging web applications. It's amazing how much easier all those tools can make a developer's life.
Yeah.
But now I'm curious, with these tools at our disposal, what does the future hold for real-time applications? What exciting horizons do you see, Reverb opening up?
Well, it's a really exciting time to be building for the web. I think we're moving away from these, static pages and towards a future where web applications are as dynamic and interconnected as the real world itself.
I love that idea. It's like we're blurring the lines between, the digital world and our everyday experiences.
Exactly. Imagine applications that respond instantly to your every input, where collaboration feels as natural as, talking to someone in the same room, and information flows seamlessly across all your devices. That's the future I envision, and I think tools like Laravel Reverb are really paving the way.
That's a future I'm definitely excited to be a part of.
Yeah.
And it's inspiring to think that developers using Laravel and Reverb are at the forefront of this real-time revolution.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what they create.
Me neither. Who knows, maybe one day we'll be collaborating on this very podcast in real time with live audience input and everything.
Now that's what I call interactive. Well, folks, we've journeyed from the basic concepts of WebSockets to the exciting world of Laravel Reverb, exploring its speed, scalability, and the endless possibilities that it unlocks. So if you're looking to build the next generation of real-time applications, Laravel Reverb is definitely worth a serious look.
I couldn't agree more.
Huge thank you to our expert for joining us on this deep dive. It's been an absolute pleasure picking your brain. And to our listeners, keep experimenting, keep building, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with, real-time technology. Until next time, happy coding.